Thanks for tuning in to Directory Insights in 10 Minutes, brought to you by Guardians of the Directory. I'm your host, Craig Birch. As promised, this series is all about cutting through the noise. No fluff, no filler, just practical insights for Active Directory and Entra ID admins who want to secure and manage their environments efficiently. So let's talk about today's topic, and that's do not require Kerberos pre-authentication set on a user account inside of your Active Directory. So why is this a risk? Well, it allows an attacker to do user enumeration without having a valid password. We can actually see that the account will come back with either the account is valid or invalid for usernames. So it makes it easier for them to be able to go in and do reconnaissance. As well as if there's a well-known attack method called AS rep roasting that they can use against these particular accounts, where we can receive a Kerberos ticket encrypted with the user's password hash and then use offline cracking tools, maybe like to brute force the password. These particular attacks are typically silent because they don't trigger normal authentication failures that you would see typically in the security logs. So what am I talking about? So let's look at the particular attribute inside of Active Directory. So here I have an account. His name is Al Adam. And again, we're going to go into the account and then under the account options, and we can see here, do not require Kerberos pre-authentication is stamped on this account. We really don't want to see this in our Active Directory environment at all, because again, it's a weaker password setting, as well as from a Kerberos pre-authentication perspective, as well as it can be used from an attacker's perspective from create additional backdoors, as well as initial entry point. So again, they can use it for additional reconnaissance and then find these accounts, brute force these accounts, and get their initial entry. So again, as we've talked about these in previous series, admins, we don't look at these things through the GUI typically. We want to go in and use our favorite tool, PowerShell, to go in and find these accounts. So I created a basic script that will help us go out and identify these accounts inside of your environment. So let's look at what this script does and how we can run it. So the first thing I want to do is import the Active Directory module. So if you don't have that running in your environment, you want to go ahead and get that imported. But the next thing I want to do is go out and find user accounts that do not require Kerberos pre-authentication. So I'm looking for does not require pre-auth equal true on these particular users. And then I'm going to output this as the SAM account name, the name, and the user principal name as well. So let's just run the first part of the script so we can see what accounts we have in our environment. So let's just run this. And then I just put a pause in here to help us for easily visualize these accounts to go in and see which accounts would be impacted. And you can see that Al Adam account that I showed you through the GUI is impacted, but it looks like we have several others as well. So let's just go in and verify another one through the GUI just to make sure our script's working and see if we do see that flag set on the account. So let's go to this one here. I believe that was one of them. Let me go back real quick and just make sure. So let's look at Albert Adamson, for example. So let's pick a different account. And if we go in, we can see, sure enough, right, this does not require Kerberos pre-authentication in our environment. So the next step is we would want to go in and remediate those. So we could go in and through the GUI and do that. So we'll go back to the original one, Al Adam, and remediate him manually. So we can go in and address that in our environment. That's easy enough. We just go in, uncheck that box, and now we've performed the remediation in a onesie, twosie, or basically a onesie fashion, right? So through the GUI. Again, us as AD admins, we don't work that way, right? We're working in the fashion of we want to be able to do remediation. So I would want to go out and find all the accounts in my environment spit those out like I did here, right, and see which ones are, and then go in and remediate these because I do not want this setting in my environment. So let's go in and complete that process. So again, the first step is we went out and identified the account. So let's go run that again just to see what accounts are in this state. And again, we'll see that that other account that I just manually remediated has been removed. The next step is now I just want to then take those accounts and then basically send it through a for each loop. And I'm setting the AD account control here for the user identity, which we've already defined up here. And then we're basically setting that does not require pre-auth the false. So let's go and look at this from that remediation perspective. Again, we'll just run this last part of the script and then we'll remediate it. And if we go in and look at those accounts from a refresh perspective, let's just go in and refresh this OU real quick. And we can see that these accounts should no longer be in that state. So again, very quick way for you to go in and identify which accounts in your environment do not require Kerberos pre-authentication. Again, there's the reason being is primarily AS rep roasting technique, which allows them to receive a Kerberos ticket encrypted with the user's password hash, and then they can use it for offline with offline cracking tools like John the Ripper, Hashcat, etc. As well as though an attacker can send authentication requests that receive different and get a response back, whether if it's valid or invalid, confirming that the account exists. So it helps them with the initial enumeration. And again, this particular technique is silent. It's not noisy like a password spray or a brute force because the way that the authentication failure is logged, and if you're not really looking at that from a Active Directory security perspective, this can go unnoticed. So that's it for this episode of Directory Insight in 10 minutes. As a reminder, keep your AD security simple, fast, and actionable. And if you found this useful, like, share, or drop a comment with your thoughts. And if you've got a topic you want us to cover, let us know. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay guarded, and become the guardian of your directory.